So good evening. I'm Dr. Barry Weinberg from A Place for Healing, and I want to welcome you to the first ever Place for Healing weekly wellness webinar. And the webinar this evening is called A Life of Healing. It's very personal to me. I'm going to actually share a little bit about my life and how I came to understand a lot of the things that I understand about healing and what I had to go through in order to understand and do what I do as I do it today. This is my first time doing this, so if it's glitchy, please forgive me. I'm not going to mute anybody, so I'm just going to ask that everybody hold any questions or comments or discussion till the end. We'll have a discussion period at that time, and I figure the talk will be about 20 minutes, and then we'll have a question-answer period. So I've come to believe that, and you may believe this too, that everything happens for a reason. That everything I've experienced throughout my life has happened and has led to where I am right now. For you, you wouldn't, if anything was different throughout your life, you wouldn't be sitting on this webinar right now. Everything we've all experienced have led to right at this moment. So I'm going to be sharing those different events that led to where I am today. So I'm going to put on a presentation here. There it is. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I started my practice 21 years ago, in 1993, A Place for Healing. And along the way, I've done some creative accomplishments. I wrote a book called A Clear Path to Healing, Reclaiming the Inner Healing Power of Body and Mind to Reach Your Optimum Health Potential. And it's a book that gives you step-by-step information, philosophy, strategies to really be your own healthcare system and live a healthy lifestyle. I've written another book called To Face a Dragon, which is more of a Lord of the Rings kind of story that teaches the healing process through a story. It's very personal to me. And I'm also a musician, a guitarist, and a songwriter. And a few years back, I had the opportunity to write the soundtrack for a movie called Florida Crackers. It's a documentary about the cattlemen and cowboys of Florida. And you can actually view that at floridacrackersmovie.com. You can also purchase the music at iTunes. So there's my plug about Florida Crackers, and we're going to move forward. So when I was a kid, I was a very little kid. There I am. Wasn't I cute? I was a little kid. I was the smallest on the block. I was skinny. I was scrawny. And I was also somewhat frail. I got sick a lot. I got injured a lot. I had lots of allergies, and it just seemed like I was always going to the doctor. The doctor was always seeing me. My parents always had issues with Barry having to go to the doctor. And when I was about 12 years old, no, actually when I was about 9 years old, my parents decided to move to Florida. We were living in New York. I was born in New York. And we moved to Florida, and we were here for about a week. And I met a kid named Vinny. And we went to, I guess, what you would call a rec hall or a rec room. My dad was playing pool upstairs, and we found this little set of stairs. And we decided to see how far we could run and jump off of these stairs. And the ceiling was shaped like this. Can you see me? Is my picture still up there? Just out of curiosity?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't see you.
Yeah.
And the ceiling was angled like this, and I jumped a little too high, and I caught my head on the corner of the ceiling. Basically, I scalped myself. My dad, I spoke to him yesterday about this because I wanted to get this picture, and he said that was the most horrible day of his life. If you can imagine, your 9-year-old kid just moved to Florida, carrying me in his arms, taking me to the hospital with blood pouring out of my head. And I had to get 78 stitches across my head to seal me up. They shaved my head, and I had to start school in a new town, 4th grade. looking like this. So as you can imagine, I kind of went into a little bit of an emotional shell. And my behavior became very erratic. And my parents put a hat on me and sent me off to school. So about 3 years later, something began to happen. I started to have seizures. I started to get flashing lights in my eyes, started to lose my eyesight. My hands, feet, arms would go numb. And I would try to speak. It would come out as gibberish. It would come out like that. And when that would all stop, I'd have a very severe headache. Of course, my parents were very concerned, so they started taking me to doctors. And the doctors did all kinds of tests on me. And what they came to the conclusion was that it was something called classic migraines. And of course, the only solution they had was medication. Right about that time, my mom started reading magazines about health. This was like 1978. And Alternative Magazine, Prevention Magazine, you may remember those. She started reading about artificial colors and artificial flavors and preservatives. Started to learn that those aren't good for you. So one day I came home from school and all the Fruit Loops were replaced by grape nuts. And all the Oreos were replaced by fruit. And we started living a healthier lifestyle. And so my mom didn't want to give me pain medication for the rest of my life, so she started doing some exploring. And one of her friends recommended that I check out a chiropractor. And so she took me. There he is. That was my very first chiropractor back in 1978, Dr. Stan. He's still in practice, Stan Gruberman. And he started to adjust me. And what's began to happen is not only did the migraine headaches reduce and eventually stop, didn't totally stop, but they stopped to like once a year instead of once a week. My parents started to notice that my allergies went away. And I stopped getting sick so often. And then my behavior started to change. I started to become a little more outgoing. And just my whole being started to change. So they made a decision at that time, this is good for me, and that they're going to keep taking me to the chiropractor. And my brother, my older brother, he had a very severe case of psoriasis. And he also went to Dr. Stan. And Dr. Stan helped him as well. My parents really got from when I was a little kid that chiropractic is something that was good for me, good for us. So when I was growing up, if I got a flu, if I got a cold, my parents didn't run to take me to get antibiotics or Pepto-Bismol or whatever people were taking. They took me to Dr. Stan to get adjusted. And that's how I grew up. In fact, I haven't really taken much medication or really any medication until about 2 years ago when I had to get a root canal. And the dentist made me take an antibiotic or else he wouldn't do it. And my son Daniel, who's 10 years old, he's never had medication. He's never taken medicine. He's had his colds and his childhood sicknesses, but he gets adjusted and he stays healthy. So when I went to decided to graduate high school and I decided to go to college, you can imagine what I wanted to be when I grew up. And you're probably thinking, oh, he went to become a chiropractor. Well, no, I didn't. I decided to go to school for journalism and music. So I wanted to be a writer and a musician. But during that first year at college, I went to the University of Florida up in Gainesville. I had this one biology teacher. I had to take biology. It was a required class. So I had this one biology teacher that was one of those teachers that was super dynamic, super enthusiastic about everything. And he was just so much fun to watch and be around. And I was really enamored to him and really enjoyed his classes. So I decided to switch my major to zoology and became a zoology major and really took to the sciences. And the one thing that biology teacher always taught us was that in order for a species, an animal, a plant, a bacteria to survive, to really thrive in its environment, it must have an effective ability to adapt. And this is something he talked about all the time, and he would get so excited about it and talk about this quote all the time by Charles Darwin. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. And that really stuck with me for a long time. In fact, he used to show us a video, and I actually found it, of a piece of grass growing through a piece of concrete in a New York City. And that's really amazing. Something so frail and delicate that can be crushed under your foot can bust through a piece of concrete. If any of you have ever lived in a city, you've seen this. And grow and thrive in the midst of that. So what that college teacher taught me from an early age, just starting college, was the key to health, the key to life, the key for any species to survive is to learn to adapt. So when I graduated from the University of Florida with my zoology degree, I started to learn that most biology majors became teachers or researchers, and I really didn't want to do that. And one day I thought, you know what? I want to become a chiropractor. And it turned out that I had all the prerequisites to go to chiropractic school. So when I went to chiropractic school, the president of the school was a very dynamic Baptist preacher-like guy. His name was Sid Williams. And Dr. Sid would once a week have an assembly where we had to go listen to him. We weren't allowed to raise our hand, and we weren't allowed to ask questions. We just had to listen. And something he drilled into us over and over again are these two things: that the human body is intelligent, that at every moment there are millions and billions and quadrillions of chemical reactions and functions happening in the human body that we don't have to put one moment of thought into. It just happens. That the human body is constantly coordinating all this stuff all the time. And if you eat something or drink something like I'm doing here, if you eat an apple, the body knows how to take that apple and break it up into all its components and turn it into muscle and bone and skin and heart and turn it into you and get rid of all the stuff that it doesn't need. So I think we're all in agreement that the human body is very intelligent. And through this intelligence, the human body heals itself. If you cut your finger, we've all done this, you'll see in a few days, even sometimes hours, a scab will form. And not only that, as the skin mends itself and heals, the fingerprints will come back, and very often they're lined up. It's unbelievable. It's a miracle of life. So the human body is intelligent, and the human body heals itself. Now, what controls all that physiologically is our brain, spinal cord, and nerves. It controls all bodily functions, including healing. You got the brain, the spinal cord going down the back, and the nerves branch out to all the parts of the body through which that intelligence can express itself. Now, something that I learned that's unique about chiropractic is that chiropractic looks at the spine for health. And what they taught us in chiropractic school is that when we go through life and we experience physical stresses, traumas like car accidents and falls, but also emotional stresses and chemical stresses, chemical toxicities, if we get overwhelmed by those stresses, the body has a circuit breaker kind of mechanism in which one of the vertebrae can actually get misaligned. In chiropractic, that's called a subluxation. And that subluxation interferes with the expression of this intelligence, the flow of energy through the nervous system, interfering with the body's normal function and its ability to heal. And the job of a chiropractor is onefold. One thing is to help correct and remove subluxations from the spine, thus restoring the body's ability to function properly and heal itself. We heard this every week. The body's intelligent. It heals itself. This is controlled by the nervous system. Subluxations interfere with the body's normal function. Our job is to correct that. That's what I heard week in, week out, every day in class. Now, there was something about this that didn't sit right to me. There was something about it that I questioned, which was, if the body is intelligent and the body is self-healing, why can't it heal its own subluxations? Why does it need us, the chiropractors? This bothered me. It's like, why can't, of all the things, the body can heal anything they would teach us, why is this the one thing the body cannot heal? So one week in assembly, I did what nobody else does. I raised my hand. And everybody gasped in amazement. And Dr. Sid looked questioningly at me and said, "Yes, son?" I said, "Dr. Sid, can I ask you a question?" And he was a little shocked, but he said yes. And I asked him this question: if the body's intelligent and the body heals itself, why can't it heal its own subluxations? Why does it need a chiropractor to do it? And you want to know what his answer was? "Sit down, you young whippersnapper." Those were his exact words. This bothered me for a while. This bothered me for some time. And I had a roommate, his name was Tracy Bloom. He's a chiropractor now. He practices up in Albany, New York, upstate New York. Me and Tracy did a lot of interesting things together. We did martial arts, and we used to read books about quantum physics and spirituality, and just explored all kinds of meditation and all kinds of stuff. And one weekend, he went to a seminar. He came back from that seminar so pumped and so excited. He said, "Barry, you got to check this stuff out. It is so for you, and I think it's going to answer your question that you've had." So next time Donnie Epstein, the man that developed Network, was in town, I went to a seminar called Network Spinal Analysis. And those 3 days of that seminar was the answer to my question. And what Donnie Epstein taught me, that when the body is in the stress response, all mechanisms of healing and growth stop. So we go through life. We experience different stresses. Maybe when we're a kid, the stress is falling when we're trying to learn to walk. And then as we get older, somebody steals our bike. And then like me, I jump off some stairs and crack my head open. And then we get into high school and somebody breaks up with us. And then we get fired from a job. And we go through all these stresses. The moment that stress overwhelms our body's ability to adapt, a part of our nervous system makes a decision that says, "I am not safe." And that the body goes into what's called defense posture. It goes into a permanent stress response to be on alert and protect us all the time. Now, the stress response, we've all experienced it. The stress response is something to keep us alive and help us survive a threat, a danger, something that can harm us. It's very important, but we're not supposed to live in it day in and day out. For example, we're driving down the highway, driving I-95, the car in front of us stops short, we slam on the brake, our body goes into that stress response. Our muscles tighten up, our heart rate goes up, we might start sweating, breath goes higher. But as soon as everything's fine, after a few minutes and we calm down, everything returns to normal. Well, when we get those stresses day in, day out, physical, emotional, chemical, we do reach that point of overwhelm where the body says, "I'm not safe." And at that point, all the mechanisms of healing and growth initially reduce and then they stop. And chronic illnesses such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, chronic pains in the body, digestive issues, immune deficiencies, all these things are really just one thing: the body stuck in the stress response. So it really comes down to one thing. Our body is either growing or it's defending. Can't do both at the same time. And I found this video. This is actually an advertisement for a game that I saw online, and it demonstrates it great. So I'm going to play this. And what I want you to see is that you see people building this village. They're building, they're growing, they're evolving. There's no threats. Everything's growing great. They decide to build a big castle, but suddenly, ooh, I didn't know about that. Okay. Suddenly, they're attacked. All the growth stops and they defend themselves. As soon as the threat is gone, they start to heal and growth begins again. So what Network Spinal Analysis taught me is when the body moves out of the stress response, all healing and growth naturally resume. So that's what I do. That's what my practice and what my life became all about. If there was one thing, the most important thing I could do for any individual to help them get healthy as a doctor, what would it be? And it was to help them get out of the stress response. So in my office, we do a thorough analysis of the spine and nervous system to determine where, how the body's holding on to these stresses. We can hold it in the nerves, we can hold it in the muscles, we can hold it in the joints. And it's as simple as help the body move out of the stress response, help the body recover from those past traumas and stresses, and the body, again, will start healing itself. So why cannot those subluxations correct themselves? Because when that subluxation happens, it's like a circuit breaker. And as long as the system's unoverwhelmed, just like the electrical system in your house, you could keep moving that circuit breaker back, and it's going to keep popping out because the body's in overwhelm. And when that body is stuck in that subluxation, it's a result of that stress response, the body can't heal it. It can't really heal anything effectively. And in network spinal analysis, when the person's laying on the table through gentle touches, helping the body find ease and peace and safety, those subluxations do heal themselves. They naturally return themselves through movement and breath that the person makes on the table. Waves of natural breath and movement start developing as a person moves through the process that naturally correct those subluxations, restoring normal body function and restoring the body's ability to heal and grow. And one of the things you could do for yourself to assess if your body's holding on to a stress response and assess others is that when the body's in the stress response, it goes into what's called defense posture. Great cartoon that demonstrates this, Charlie Brown. I wrote at the top here, the shape, position, tension, and tone of your spine and nervous system determine the shape, position, tension, and tone of your life. Charlie Brown's sitting there with Sally, and he says, this is my depressed stance. When you're depressed, it makes a lot of difference how you stand. The worst thing you could do is straighten up and hold your head high, because then you'll start to feel better. If you're going to get any joy out of being depressed, you got to stand like this. So this is a really great demonstration that shows when the body's in that stress response, it goes into that posture, and the body cannot be healthy, happy in that posture. So we talked about network spinal analysis. Network spinal analysis is a gentle approach to chiropractic that uses gentle touches on the spine to help the body recover from past traumas and stresses and develop new strategies for adapting to stress and trauma. And those strategies involve waves that move through the spine, movement waves that actually look like a dolphin wave through the spine, and even more importantly, a wave of breath that helps release tension out of the spine. In my office, when you first start care and periodically throughout care, we do different scans that can measure the stress. This is just a little example of an EMG, a muscle scan, that shows muscle tension. This is December of 2002. You can see green is mild, blue is moderate, red is severe muscle tension. And this was a person in care for about 4 months, and you can see how happy their spine is here. This is a normal scan at the bottom. This is where they were after 4 months. So we can actually watch the stress leave the body. We also have a thermography that measures nerve stress. We look at range of motion that shows where there's stress in the joints, see how well your spine moves, posture. We also use another technology that looks at the cardiovascular system, that looks at the heart rate. It can show you how adaptable you are and how healthy you are simply by looking at the spaces between the heartbeats and evaluating that. So all these different tools we have, we can evaluate the effect of stress on your body. These are some of the benefits that people have reported in a research study that was done at the University of California Medical School in Irvine, and people under network care experienced all these different benefits, and you can look at that for yourself. Reduced pain, less depression, anxiety, more joy and peace, reduced blood pressure, all the things that are affected by stress. So real quick, because I only have a few more minutes on here, but in my book, A Clear Path to Healing, I talk about responsibility. And I don't mean it like most people understand it. I mean it by your body's ability to respond effectively to stress. And these are 7 quick things that you could do on a regular basis to not only release stress out of your body, but increase your body's ability to recover and increase your body's ability to adapt. And I'm going to have different webinars in the future that go into these in much more detail. Basically, being present in the moment and doing some form of meditation on a regular basis. Eating healthy reduces stress in the body, doesn't stress the body, helps your body adapt better. Having proper exercise, same thing. Adequate rest, active breathing, taking some time to take some deep breaths each day. Everybody do one right now. Just feel the stress leaving the body. And a loving, giving heart. You know how it feels when you give somebody or you do something not for you, selfless service? The most important that I feel is having your spine and nervous system clear of that stress so that your body can function the way it's supposed to. So if you're new on this call and you'd like to experience what we do and have an evaluation of the stress in your spine and nervous system, for participating tonight, I'm offering $10, which is usually I have here $120. I got to fix that. Usually $150. But for $10, you can have a complete spinal and health evaluation, all the things that I do, and all that money is going to be donated to a local charity. So you're just basically donating to a local charity, and you'll have a complete spinal and health exam. So that is the first wellness webinar. I hope you enjoyed it, A Life of Healing. Next week, I'm going to be doing The Secret to True Health and Wellness, same time, same station. Learn the real cause of the current healthcare crisis and discover a new dynamic model of healthcare with effective strategies to reach optimum health and wellness.